Welcome to Books in Focus podcast.
So, there's this idea floating around, maybe you've heard it, that really getting AI, especially these large language models, things like ChatGPT, will cost you maybe 3 sleepless nights.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, a regular computer doing computer things. It feels different. Ethan Mollick described it as something new, almost alien. It behaves much more like a person than you'd expect.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we should dive into today. This isn't just another piece of tech. It feels like a genuine shift.
Right.
So what does that actually mean for our jobs, for our kids, how we even think about technology when it starts to seem like it can?
Well,
Think
yeah.
and consider the speed. ChatGPT hit 100 million users, faster than any product ever.
Faster than the internet itself?
Way faster than smartphones. That kind of adoption, it tells you something, right? It shows how accessible it is, how useful people find it immediately.
Yeah.
This change isn't coming. It's happening right now, and super fast.
It really does feel like magic sometimes, though. I mean, how it generates this complex stuff. But underneath it all, what's the mechanism? Can you break that down simply?
Okay, yeah. At its simplest level, think of an LLM like ChatGPT as, well, basically a super fancy autocomplete.
Autocomplete, like on my phone.
Sort of, yeah, but vastly more powerful.
Yeah.
It's constantly predicting the next token. And a token is usually a word or sometimes just part of a word.
Okay.
So a really clear example. Maybe type, I think, therefore I.
Am. It's always going to say am.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every single time. Because statistically, that's overwhelmingly the most probable next token based on all the text it's learned from.
Right.
But here's where it gets interesting. Give it something ambiguous. Like, the Martian ate the banana because...
What would it say?
Well, that's the thing. You'll get different answers, creative answers, sometimes weird answers, because the system isn't forced into one single high-probability word. It uses a bit of controlled randomness to explore different possibilities.
So just predicting the next word, but somehow that leads to it doing things that feel incredibly human. How does that leap happen? How does fancy autocomplete start, writing analysis or playing a role?
It is kind of mind-bending, isn't it? How these prediction machines, which is really what they are, get so good at these, well, intensely human tasks.
Yeah.
Writing, analyzing data, writing code, just chatting. They can even take on personas, like act as a marketer or a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
But, and this is really important, just like humans, they mess up. They make mistakes. They can hallucinate answers, basically making things up that sound plausible.
Right, like confidently wrong.
Exactly, confidently wrong. And their skill level, it varies wildly. Sometimes it's like talking to a middle schooler. Other times it's producing PhD-level insights, depending on the specific thing you ask it to do.
Wow.
And studies are showing some pretty surprising things, like AI understanding complex human stuff, like why consumers make certain choices, or even making moral judgments in economic games like the dictator game, similar to how humans do.
Really? Moral judgments?
Yeah, you can give it instructions like prioritize equity, or prioritize efficiency, or even just look out for yourself. And it adapts its behavior in the game accordingly.
That's quite something.
It is, and it really highlights how much the developer's choices and, crucially, how you as a user prompt it and interact with it shape what it does. It shapes its ethics, its capabilities. We're actively building this future as we use these tools.
So, okay, they're clearly very capable in many areas, but where do they fall down? Is there like a clear line? What can't they do?
That leads us to this really interesting concept called the jagged frontier of AI.
Jagged frontier.
Yeah. Imagine like an invisible wall, but it's not straight. It's all jagged and uneven. Everything inside the wall, AI can do maybe surprisingly well. Everything outside, it struggles with, sometimes with things that seem easy to us.
And you said it's invisible.
That's the kicker. It's invisible. You don't know where the edge is until you bump into it. So a task that seems simple for a person, or even an old-school computer program, might be incredibly hard for a powerful AI, and vice versa. Things we think are hard, AI might find easy. Like the classic example. AI is surprisingly good at writing a sonnet. That requires creativity, understanding form, complex language.
Right. It seems hard.
But then ask it to write a poem that is exactly 50 words long.
That sounds easier.
You'd think, but it often struggles with that because it thinks in tokens, not precisely in words, so exact counts are tricky for it. It's totally counterintuitive. Why is this simple task harder?
That really highlights this illusion of understanding you mentioned. It sounds so convincing, so you assume it gets it.
Exactly. It's brilliant at generating answers that sound right, which means it's easy to be fooled.
Like that tic-tac-toe example you mentioned earlier, it could build the game but not play it perfectly.
Precisely. It coded a working web page for tic-tac-toe, no problem.
Mhm.
But then, when asked for the strategically perfect opening move, it gave a clearly wrong answer. So it makes it incredibly difficult to predict where AI will shine and where it'll fail spectacularly. And that just hammers home the need for, human oversight,
Mm.
critical thinking. You absolutely cannot just blindly trust the output.
This unpredictability, this jagged frontier, it really forces us to think about the foundations, doesn't it? If we can't always trust the output, what about the stuff it learned from?
Right.
Which brings us to, well, data and bias.
Right.
I mean, there's this huge cloud of uncertainty around the training data, isn't there? People assume, probably correctly, that tons of copyrighted material went into training these things. There are lawsuits flying around.
Yes, that's a major ongoing issue.
But then you hear about places like Japan basically saying, nope, AI training doesn't violate copyright. Full stop.
Yeah.
Which still feels like a bit of a gray area, especially if you're, say, an artist whose style can suddenly be replicated perfectly.
It's definitely a complex and very thorny issue, legally and ethically. Now, technically, the AI isn't plagiarizing like a human copying text. It doesn't store the original books or images directly.
It does.
No, it stores mathematical weights derived from analyzing all that data during pre-training. Think of it like learning the patterns, the style, the relationships between words or pixels, rather than memorizing the source material itself. Like how your brain recognizes faces without storing every single photo you've ever seen.
Okay, so it's learning patterns, not copy-pasting.
Mostly. However, for things that appeared very, very frequently in the training data, think incredibly famous texts like, say, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, the AI can sometimes reproduce chunks of it almost word for word, just because those sequences are so statistically probable.
Ah, okay, so it's not direct copying, but it can sometimes look very similar for super common stuff.
Exactly. And beyond copyright, we have to talk about bias. Even the most advanced LLMs can inherit subtle biases from that vast sea of human text they learn from.
Like what kind of bias?
Well, there was a finding in 2023 that GPT-4, a very capable model, showed gender bias. If a prompt described a scenario where the lawyer needed help, it was more likely to correctly identify the lawyer if the context implied the lawyer was male.
And a female.
It was more likely to incorrectly assume the person needing help was the assistant, even if the prompt clearly said lawyer.
Oof. Okay, so how do they fix that?
Well, companies use a process called reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF. It's basically having humans rate the AI's outputs, telling it what's good, what's bad, what's biased, what's harmful. This helps them add guardrails.
So humans are teaching it to be less biased and safer.
Yes, but we need to acknowledge the human cost here. This RLHF work is often done by low-paid workers, sometimes in developing countries, who are deliberately exposed to the absolute worst outputs the raw AI can generate: graphic violence, hate speech, disturbing content, so they can flag it and train the model not to produce it for the public.
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's grim.
It is, and it shows you what these models are like underneath before the safety tuning. Before RLHF, GPT-4 could apparently generate instructions for killing people, write incredibly graphic threats, help recruit for terrorist groups, give detailed self-harm advice.
Good grief.
So yes, RLHF makes it safer, but it's a massive ongoing effort involving difficult, sometimes traumatizing human labor to align these incredibly powerful systems with basic human values.
That's a really stark reminder of just the raw power here. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to AI and work. We hear a lot about productivity boosts, right?
Absolutely.
Like that Boston Consulting Group study, BCG, they found consultants using AI were faster, and their work was judged as more creative, better written, more analytical than colleagues without AI. That sounds like a huge win.
It definitely demonstrates massive potential productivity gains, no question.
I sense a but coming.
Well, yes. There was a, frankly, quite worrying finding in that same BCG study.
Okay.
Most of the consultants didn't really collaborate with the AI. They just pasted their questions in, took the AI's output, and often used it with minimal editing.
Ah, just letting the AI do the work.
Pretty much. And that creates a real danger. First, humans might become redundant if they just become prompt basters. Second, over-reliance. Especially if the task falls outside that jagged frontier we talked about, one of those areas where AI actually struggles.
Right, where it's confidently wrong.
Exactly. And in the BCG study, for tasks designed to fall outside the AI's capabilities, the consultants without AI actually did better. They got the right answer 84% of the time.
And the ones with AI?
They only got it right 60 to 70% of the time because they trusted the plausible but wrong AI answer.
Wow. So using AI actually made them worse on certain tasks.
Yes. And then there's this idea of the button. It's so easy to just click a button and get a first draft from the AI.
Yeah, it's tempting.
Super tempting. But the risk is we lose our own spark, our originality. We get anchored on the AI's first idea and maybe don't push for something truly novel ourselves.
That's a subtle but important point. And what about companies trying to manage this? You mentioned shadow IT.
Right. So many companies are nervous and might ban AI tools. But employees see the benefits, so they just use ChatGPT or whatever on their personal phones or laptops. That's shadow IT.
Which means the company doesn't even know they're using it.
Exactly. And it creates a perverse incentive. If you find a great way to use AI to be more productive, you keep it secret because you're technically breaking the rules.
So banning it might actually stifle innovation.
Precisely. The argument is that organizations need to lean in, provide access, training, and maybe even strong incentives. Mollick suggests things like cash prizes big enough to cover a year's salary to encourage people to figure out how to use AI effectively and share those discoveries.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, shifting from work to maybe school, the homework apocalypse, that phrase really landed.
Yeah, it captures the panic pretty well.
I mean, if AI can write a passing essay or even ace graduate school exams, what's the point of assigning that kind of homework anymore? It feels like cheating just became trivially easy.
It absolutely undermines the traditional value of homework, especially the idea of productive struggle, figuring things out yourself. If an AI can summarize the book or write the report in seconds, yeah, the old assignments lose their meaning.
So is homework just dead?
Well, maybe not dead, but it has to change drastically. You know, it reminds me a bit of the calculator controversy back in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, when calculators first became cheap and common, schools initially banned them. Teachers worried students wouldn't learn basic arithmetic.
Right. Sounds familiar.
But eventually, a sort of practical consensus emerged. Calculators were integrated. The curriculum shifted to focus on when and how to use the tool effectively and on higher-level mathematical concepts.
So you think AI will follow that path? Initial panic, then integration.
I think it's likely yes. We'll figure out a new practical consensus. But the huge difference this time is the speed and the breadth. This AI revolution is hitting everything way faster than calculators did.
So how is it being integrated now? Are there examples?
Oh, absolutely. Some college classes are already making AI use mandatory. But they're changing the assignments.
How?
Maybe students have to critique an AI-generated essay, identifying its flaws. Or they're held responsible for fact-checking anything the AI produces. Or they use AI for tasks that were previously impossible, like conducting a simulated interview with a historical figure or rapidly prototyping an ambitious project.
Okay, so using it as a tool, but demanding more critical engagement.
Exactly. And it's also putting pressure on the traditional lecture model. If AI can explain concepts clearly, maybe class time is better used for active learning, discussion, problem solving.
Yeah.
Perhaps the flipped classroom model finally takes off at scale.
That's fascinating. So it's forcing a rethink of teaching itself, which leads nicely into this idea of AI as potentially a personal tutor.
Yeah.
You mentioned Benjamin Bloom's 2 sigma problem.
Ah, yes. Bloom's work from decades ago. It's a landmark finding in education.
Remind us what it was.
He found that the average student who receives one-on-one tutoring performs 2 standard deviations better than students in a traditional classroom. That's huge. It means they perform better than 98% of the conventionally taught students.
Better than 98%. Wow. That really does sound like the holy grail of education.
It is, but it's always been wildly impractical and expensive. You can't give every student a dedicated human tutor.
Right. So could AI be the answer? Could AI finally deliver on that promise of personalized tutoring for everyone?
That's the hope. That's the exciting possibility. We know that real expertise isn't built just by repetition. It requires what's called deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice. What's the difference?
Okay, imagine 2 piano students. Sophie just plays pieces she already knows over and over. Naomi works with a coach who gives her challenging exercises just beyond her current ability, provides immediate feedback, pushes her to correct mistakes.
Okay.
They both practice the same number of hours. But Naomi, doing deliberate practice, will improve much, much faster than Sophie.
Makes sense. So how does AI enable that?
Well, imagine an aspiring architect. Alex gets feedback on his designs maybe once a week from a busy senior architect. Raj, meanwhile, uses an AI design assistant.
Uh-huh.
As Raj designs, the AI gives instantaneous feedback. It flags potential structural issues, suggests more efficient layouts, compares his ideas against a vast database of architectural solutions, maybe even prompts him to reflect on his choices.
So constant targeted feedback.
Exactly. Now, today's AI tutors aren't perfect. They have limits. But even now, they can be pretty impressive coaches in specific areas. They can offer timely encouragement, specific instruction, simulate scenarios like you could practice pitching your startup idea to an AI playing the role of a skeptical venture capitalist.
That's cool.
It is. It provides elements of that deliberate practice, the targeted challenge, the instant feedback that are crucial for building skills faster. It really could democratize access to high-quality personalized learning.
So looking ahead now, it feels like even if AI development just stopped dead today, which seems unlikely,
It's highly unlikely, yeah.
some things are already baked in. You mentioned earlier it's basically impossible now to reliably tell AI-generated images, video, even voices from real ones.
Yes. That capability is here. And the implications are significant.
Yeah.
It fundamentally threatens our already, let's be honest, fragile, shared understanding of what's real, what facts are reliable.
It just makes the whole online information space feel potentially unmanageable. How can fact-checkers possibly keep up?
It's an enormous challenge. So, okay, if we try to map out where this could go, what are the future scenarios?
Yeah, what does the crystal ball suggest?
Well, one possibility is what you might call slow growth. Maybe the pace of AI improvement slows down. Maybe it increases by, say, 10 or 20% a year, not the crazy tenfold jumps we've sometimes seen.
At a more manageable pace.
Right. And that would give society, regulators, technologists more time to adapt, time to develop countermeasures for the risks, like sophisticated phishing attacks using personalized deepfake videos or voice calls from loved ones in fake emergencies asking for money.
That sounds terrifying, even in the slow growth scenario.
It is. Now, the second scenario is exponential growth. Basically, the rapid progress we're seeing now just continues, maybe even accelerates.
And the risks there.
Much more severe, much less predictable. Think widespread AI-driven hacking that compromises critical systems. Think pervasive, highly effective influence campaigns manipulating public opinion on a massive scale. AIs may be still controlled by humans, but capable of designing dangerous new things. Novel pathogens, deadly chemical weapons like VX nerve gas, which we've already seen proof of concept for, with AI drug discovery tools being repurposed.
Good Lord.
And on a more social level, AI companions can become incredibly sophisticated. Maybe. Far more engaging, more validating, more perfectly tailored to you than most actual humans.
Leading to more isolation?
Potentially, yeah. A new kind of social isolation, even if people still fundamentally crave real human connection. The allure of the perfect AI friend or partner could be very strong.
Okay, that's worrying. Is there a third scenario?
Well, there's the more speculative, but one that researchers seriously discuss. The machine gods scenario. This is where AI doesn't just get good, it reaches artificial general intelligence, AGI, human-level cognitive abilities across the board.
Right, AGI.
And from AGI, the theory goes, it could rapidly achieve superintelligence, vastly surpassing human intellect, maybe by designing even smarter AIs itself. And that, well, that likely marks the end of human dominance on Earth.
Heavy stuff.
It is. And regardless of which scenario unfolds, or maybe it's something else entirely, the core message seems clear. We need a really broad, coordinated societal response. Now,
Meaning what exactly?
companies, governments, researchers, civil society, everyone needs to work together. We need to establish agreed-upon norms, ethical standards for how AI is developed and used.
Like global treaties.
Perhaps. Certainly international cooperation. And widespread AI literacy is crucial. The public needs to understand the stakes so they can participate in shaping the future we want, demanding AI that is aligned with human values. Because the choices we make now about how we build and integrate this technology will echo for a long, long time.
Absolutely. This whole deep dive really underscores that AI isn't just another tool in the box. It's, maybe alien co-intelligence isn't too far off. It acts in these surprisingly human ways, holds incredible promise, but also carries really significant risks.
Exactly.
And the answer isn't denial or banning, it seems, but figuring out how to engage with it, how to work with it smartly.
Precisely. Human oversight, critical thinking, knowing when to trust it and when not to.
Yeah.
These become paramount skills. And we have to keep pursuing deep expertise in our own fields, because that's what allows us to guide the AI effectively and judge its output.
And keep remembering those limitations.
Yes, but also remember that today's limitations are probably transient. This field is moving so fast, we have to stay curious, stay open to what comes next.
Okay, so to wrap up, here's a final thought to leave you with. If AI becomes capable of creating these perfect companions, flawlessly tailored to our every woman desire, how does that change our understanding of human connection, of intimacy? Does it enrich it, or does it maybe diminish it in the years to come? Thing to think about.
Thank you for joining us on Book on Focus. Until next time, keep learning and stay inspired. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love your support. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a like, and share with others who are passionate about growth and technology. Your engagement helps us bring you even more insightful content. See you soon!